So you have to know how to do this, okay? And this actually, like, it'll come into play with next year when you're looking at like expansion of like distribution, or like coming up with x squared plus x, like quadratics in general, I suppose. Okay, next year it'll actually come into play using your power laws. Okay, so for this, anytime you see a negative exponent, unless it's in the brackets like in question 2, I'll show you how to deal with that in a sec. Okay, but anytime you see it in like a negative exponent, I would just flip that right away. So it's going to be x squared over x cubed. You could also, and this is the little freedom here, you could also go like this, x2 plus negative 3. That should be equal to x to the negative 1, which you know is being 1 over x. That should be our answer. Either of these two methods would work. Okay, if I finish this one off, it's going to be x2 minus 3, which is x to the negative 1, which is equal to 1 over x. Okay? So either of those two methods, I suppose the one on the right might be a little quicker, less work, less steps. Okay? One thing I'm going to be looking for, though, on this test, don't forget these, because I'm going to hit you for them. I'll do it. I'm going to do it. It's not a threat. It's a promise. I'll take off marks, okay? Don't forget your equal signs. Okay. Next one. When I say distribute the exponent, it needs to go to everything. It doesn't matter if it's a fraction, doesn't matter if it's a number, whatever, okay? That exponent needs to go on every single thing within the contents of those brackets. Does everybody see what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what it is, it's got to go on it, okay? So if I were you, I would just take the time, rewrite this line. This would be like if there was a coefficient out front, you would multiply it in, right? And it would have to, if there was a bunch of plus signs, it would have to go on everything. It's the same thing with this exponent, right? So put it on to all four things. So my next line, this would be kind of your way of getting rid of brackets if you had power to power, right? So I'm going to have 2 cubed, x to the negative 2 times 3, y 2 times 3. And again, I always do this with more steps than I think you need, but for the people who are still a little bit behind, okay, I'm trying to meet those people, not the ones that know what they're doing already, okay? So you don't need to show that step, but you can just do it. I'm just trying to show you or model like what to do when, okay? And if you actually look at your review sheet on the front, in the brackets, I put like beside each rule or checklist, I told you what to do for each one. Okay, if you have powers to powers, you're going to multiply. Okay? So, we know 2 cubed, just deal with these in pieces. 2 cubed is 8. X to the negative 6. Y to the 6. Z cubed. Okay? And then we can go, okay, remember the question explicitly says with a positive power. You leave it like that, I'm taking marks off. Okay, it says with a positive power. Okay, don't leave it with any negative exponents. So just grab that and put it in the bottom. So we're going to get 8. Okay, well if I'm going to move the x to the bottom, then don't write it in the top. Go y6 z cubed, all divided by x to the power of 6. That's it. Anybody have any questions? Are we okay? Powers to power, multiply. Okay, when you're multiplying things of the same base, like in question 1, that's when you add the exponents. Okay? When they're separated as 2 separate brackets, 2 separate sets of brackets, that's when you're going to add. Or if you see the dot. Okay? That's the difference between those two questions. Okay? So for the next one, if we don't have any questions for that one, again, I would deal with just like distribute this exponent onto everything inside the brackets first. Okay, so we're going to get, and this, be careful with this, negative 2 squared, or I suppose, I suppose if you really, really wanted to get technical and so you didn't make any mistakes, this is like a pretend, this is like -1 times 2. Does everybody agree? Does everybody agree with this? -1 times 2, that's how you would get -2. So if you really wanted to get technical, you could pretend that there is a -1 there, and you would get -1 squared times 2 squared times a, and again, this is more steps than I think you need, but just for anybody still stumbling along here, okay, there you go. That takes care of the first bracket. I'll move that over so we got some room. Same thing on the second bracket, okay. You're going to get -1 cubed, 3 cubed, a to the 12, b cubed. Does anybody have any questions? How we got that? Can you zoom in? Make it a little bigger. Okay, now we can just like do our cleanup, right? I know -1 squared, that's going to become a +1, right? So that's just going to fall off the face of the earth for this question because it's just 1. Okay, so our next line is not going to have that. It's just going to be the 2 squared, which is 4. Okay, and maybe I'll do some highlighting so we can see where some of this stuff's coming from. Okay, now I'll deal with the 3 and the -1 in a sec. I see the a come up, and so I'm going to go a. I'm multiplying things of the same base like in the first question. So I'm going to go a to the -2. If I'm multiplying with the same base, I add the exponents. -2 plus 12 from the a12 over there. Okay, and then I'll deal with the b. That's b to the power of 2 plus 3. And then I know, here's the catch here though. Remember, this is all strung together with multiplication, right? -1 cubed is still -1, so that's multiplication. And 3 times 3 times 3, that's 3 cubed. 3 cubed is 27. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so now in this line, we'll just do the little cleanup. I can multiply numbers together. Okay, so -1 times 27, that's going to be -27 times 4 is what? 27 times 2 is 54. 54 times 2 would be 108, and don't forget the negative. Okay, so I'm going to get -108, and then simplify the a and b bases. So a, -2 plus 12 will be 10, and b, 2 plus 3 is 5. There's your final answer. Does anybody have any questions? Again, if you really look hard at that, those exponents went to every single thing in those brackets. Doesn't matter if it's a number, a zebra, an elephant, doesn't matter what's in there, the exponent goes on it. Okay, and it just means that there are 2 or 3 or whatever it is of them. Okay? Now, when I say the next part, okay, you be careful. Well, we'll get to the question that I want you to be careful with, but when I see a question like this, sometimes it's nice just to, like if you had multiple things, sometimes I'll say like simplify, here maybe I'll write this in black just to separate it. Sometimes like on the test I'll say simplify and then evaluate. Okay, so there's 2 separate, so it's like 2 questions there. I want the simplified version first, and then you can plug the numbers in. What I don't want to see people do is take whatever I'm telling you to plug in. We're like, that's very elementary, right? Like, we've kind of missed the point of the question there. We've missed the simplification, turning it into something that's a little bit easier to plug it that I don't need my calculator for, maybe. Right? Because I can get some m's to cancel out. Okay? So, to do this question, let's say I'm going to go m 4 plus 9 divided by m cubed. Okay, this is what I mean by simplify first and then evaluate. Okay, and that'll come into play in the later question. Okay, the volume, the square base pyramid one. Okay, and so we're going to get m to the 13 divided by m cubed. You now have this law of quotients going on here, bases match, and we're in a division scenario. So we're going to use the law of quotients, and we're going to go m13 minus 3 is m to the power of 10. And then some of us did this, which is good. That's the simplified version. That's kind of what I was looking for. But then some of us went ahead and they maybe assumed that this was evaluate. I'm not sure. Okay, and they left this. Okay, again, that's not full marks, because if it is at all possible to evaluate, I want you to evaluate says like, type in the calculator, give me a number. Okay, so don't leave it like this. Okay, I saw a couple, and I'll go back in a sec just to clean up this question. But 3 to the power of 10, I don't have this number memorized. What was this number? If you type this in the calculator, you're going to get something like what? 59049. That's what it means to evaluate. Give me a number. Okay? Now, also, when I went back up, something like this, some people did all this question right, and then instead of writing 8, they wrote 2 to the power of 3. Evaluate if possible. Okay? If at all possible, give me a number. That's what evaluate means. Okay? So they just left 2 to the power of 3. Okay? I want that 8 there. Does anybody have any questions with that question in general as a whole? Okay, you will have tons of, I obviously told you 38 questions to practice this today because this is a big part of the unit. Okay? And obviously if you can't do that, then you're going to really struggle. And I gave you a hard question today. So hopefully everybody gets to the question I put on the review to try, because it's a little bit more difficult than this quiz question. Okay?